Hi everyone, it's Wendy. Welcome to Show Me Mo Vegan. Today I'm talking about the Vitamix. I finally splurged and got one for myself, so I wanted to show you how I'm making my breakfast smoothies now. And if you just want to see the smoothie, I'll put chapters at the bottom so you can just jump right to that section. But first, I did want to go over a few pros and cons and kind of talk about if it's worth the investment, because the Vitamix is a little bit of an investment. The first thing I'll say is you absolutely do not need a Vitamix to be successful on a whole food vegan diet. Now that I have one, I can say it definitely is helpful, but a regular blender will get the job done. So a few pros and cons. Let's start with the cons, and really there's only one, which is the price. The Vitamix is very expensive, and it depends on the exact model, but I would say most of them are in the range of about $300 to $600, which is quite steep for a blender. But I'll talk in a little bit how really that's not a con in this case. The only other thing that might be a negative is the size. So the Vitamix blender is quite large, and if you have a small kitchen, it will take up a lot of real estate. Some people complained about the older models. The canister was a little bit taller. So this one that I have has the low profile container, which fits under most cabinets, whereas the old one was a little bit too tall for most people's cabinets. But those are really the only negatives that I can think of, and the pros outweigh the cons in my opinion. So the biggest thing is that anything you make in a Vitamix will be so far superior to anything you can make in a regular blender. Your smoothies will be the smoothest you've ever had, you can make creamy sauces, and you can do so many other things. You can basically treat this like a food processor. You can also make soups, you can make salsa, you can make hummus, any kind of different dips and things like that. There's so much you can do with your Vitamix. So quality and versatility are much better with the Vitamix. It's also very easy to clean, which I'll show you at the end of the video. Finally, the longevity. I've heard of people who have had their Vitamix for 10 years or more, and they use it every single day and it's still going strong. I've never had a blender that I used every day last anywhere near that long. So this is where the price point really isn't a con, especially if you are using your blender every single day. The Vitamix will last, whereas a regular blender will burn out after just a couple of years. So if you think about it, you can buy a cheap $50 blender every couple of years, or you can try to save your money to get a Vitamix that you won't have to replace for 10 or more years. In that way, it's also a little more sustainable and environmentally friendly because you're not throwing out all those blenders anymore. Plus, there are ways to get a Vitamix at a lower price. First, you can try places like Costco and Sam's, which usually have a model for a cheaper price. On the Vitamix website, they also sell certified refurbished Vitamix blenders, which from what I hear are just as good as a brand new Vitamix blender. Finally, Vitamix also has flash sales often, so you can get a particular model for a greatly reduced price. That's actually how I got my Vitamix. They recently had a flash sale on this model. The one that I have is one of their legacy models. It's the 7500 with the low profile container. So let's get into how I actually make the smoothie. If you've seen any of my What I Eat in a Day videos, you know that I have a smoothie with breakfast every morning. And I was just using a standard blender, which was fine, but I had been feeling like I wasn't getting enough raw fruits and vegetables in my diet, just in general, and I wanted to start having larger smoothies, which is why I wanted to get the Vitamix. And then when they had the flash sale, it was like, it was meant to be. So normally with my smoothies, I have a ratio of about 75% leafy greens and about 25% fruit. Now that I have the Vitamix though, I've started throwing in more vegetables, things like beets, carrots, celery, cucumbers, and the Vitamix has no problem blending through even the toughest vegetables. If I tried that in my old blender, I would usually end up with chunks, but in the Vitamix, I don't even know they're there. So now it's still mostly leafy greens, but the ratio is basically 75% greens and vegetables and 25% fruit. I also throw in a few extra things into my smoothie, which I'll show you. So let's jump right into it. So first we have our greens, and I use these big containers This is usually the most economical way that I can get my greens. This is a 16-ounce or a 1-pound container, which lasts me for about 3 smoothies. Sometimes I'll buy the smaller containers, which are about 5 ounces, I think, if they're on sale, but this is usually the cheapest price. Next, I'll add in my other veggies. Today I have celery and cucumber because I wanted a nice, perfectly green smoothie. You don't have to chop these up, but I went ahead and did just to give it a little help. And then one of my little add-ins is beans. I usually add about 1/3 cup of beans. Today I'm using soybeans, which is what I use most days. And then the fruit. Today I'm using frozen pineapple chunks. And I don't usually measure, but you know what? I will measure for you today. So I use about a cup, maybe a little more. And then frozen bananas. So whenever I have ripe bananas, I will freeze them and keep them on hand for my smoothies every day. And I'll just break that up a little bit. And then I add some spices. Spices are really good for our health. And I add turmeric, just about 1/4 teaspoon. And whenever you have turmeric, it's good to add black pepper, which helps to absorb the curcumin in the turmeric. And then I'm also adding ginger. Turmeric and ginger are 2 spices that have been very well studied to show having anti-inflammatory properties and other good health benefits. I'm thinking about starting to use fresh ginger and turmeric root. Since I do have the Vitamix, it would have no problem with that. And finally, I'm adding dulse flakes, which is a type of seaweed flakes. And I add this because I personally don't consume iodized salt. I don't add salt to my food at all. So I need a source of iodine, and seaweed is a good source of that. You just want to be careful about the type of seaweed, as some can have too much iodine. And then I'll add water to blend it. Again, I usually don't measure, but I'll measure for you today just so I can tell you. Yeah, it looks like it was about 2 cups. I don't know if you can see that there, but I have the water about halfway up the greens and everything else in there. So we simply press the lid on, and I need to plug it in, that would help. Every Vitamix model is slightly different, so you'll want to check in your manual to see exactly how to use it. On this model, again, it's the 7500 Legacy series. There's a switch on the back that you need to flip to turn it on after you plug it in, and then everything will light up on the front. On this model, there's a pulse function and just the regular blending function, and then there's the variable speed in the middle, so there's a dial that you can turn. To use the pulse on this model, you turn the speed up to whatever level you need, and then you pulse. And then to use the blending function, which is what we're going to do, you start at 1. So I'm going to start with it at 1 and flip the switch. And I let it blend for a few seconds, and it will start to blend up the greens. Eventually, everything else will fall down. Once that happens is when I turn the variable speed up. I usually don't have to go higher than 6 or 7 for my smoothies. The book, I think, says to go all the way up to 10, but 6 or 7 works for me. And I only have to blend for about 30 to 45 seconds. And we're done. And then, as I mentioned, cleaning is very easy. So all you'll do is add a little drop of soap and then fill it up about halfway with water. Put the lid on again, and we blend. And now it just needs to be rinsed out. Easy as that. All right, check out that beautiful color. Time for the taste test. Now, I usually don't use a straw, but knowing myself, I have a feeling if I tried to drink this on camera, I would just dump it all over my shirt. So we're gonna go for the straw today. So good. It's so refreshing. A couple notes about these kind of smoothies. If you're not used to them, they might not taste very good to you. But if you've started eliminating salt, oil, and sugar from your diet, your taste buds will start to change. Give it some time though. If you don't like your very first smoothie, give it a week or two and they will start to taste better to you. If you really need to add some extra sweetness, you can always throw some dates into your smoothie. The Vitamix will blend that up perfectly. I also wanted to comment on the color. So like I said, today I made a beautiful bright green smoothie, and that's what you'll get if you use your greens along with things like pineapple, mango, and banana. But you can also get some different beautiful colors. If you add beets, you can have some nice pink smoothies. If you use blueberries, you can have some really pretty purple and blue smoothies. But beware, sometimes it will come out to be not such an appealing color, but it'll still taste good. So I'm gonna go enjoy my smoothie now. If this video was helpful, hit the like button, and if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel for more tips on how to maintain Subscribe to my channel for more tips on how to maintain a healthy vegan lifestyle. Also, let me know in the comments, do you like to drink smoothies? What do you put in your smoothies? I'd love to hear your combinations. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.